Hello, my name is Catherine Harris, and I'm a board member here at the Springfield and Central Illinois African American History Museum. I'm going to be talking about our exhibit that we mounted back in March to honor Women's History Month. And we would invite all of you to come and see it. And it is a collection of commemorative stamps featuring women. I must say there is one stamp in here that features a man on the stamp. However, he's with two very significant women. Our exhibit here features women. So I'm just going to go through the exhibit that we have here and highlight a few of my favorite women. First of all, you have to have been deceased a minimum of 5 years before you can even be considered. And there is called a Postage Stamp Citizens Advisory Board committee that makes the decision as to who is going to be on a stamp. And there's a competition, so to speak, for artwork that's a part of the process. And since we started having, quote, forever stamps, all of the stamps that have been issued since that particular event began have been forever stamps. So regardless as to what the current postage price is, these stamps will work forever. So starting here on this panel, for example, my favorite one is Sojourner Truth, who was an abolitionist, and she helped to recruit soldiers for the Civil War. Zora Neale Hurston is also featured on this panel. Then we have Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells has an Illinois connection because she lived many years in Chicago, and with her husband, they started a newspaper. In the awful days of racial tension and unrest, how things don't seem to change. But she would hang out of her newspaper office window a sign that read, "A man was lynched today," because she was an avid newspaper woman and an avid civil rights person. Madam C.J. Walker is familiar to many people because of the products that she made to do our hair. On this one we have Bessie Coleman. She also has an Illinois connection. She was from Chicago. However, she had to go to France to learn how to fly an airplane because no one in the United States would accept her as a student, so therefore she couldn't get a license, so she went to France instead. But she was very popular because she was also an acrobatic pilot. We have on this one Dorothy Height. Dorothy Height might be remembered as being very instrumental in the fight for women's rights and civil rights, and she was a founding member of the National Council of Negro Women, an organization that still exists today. Over here we have, for example, Marian Anderson. I will not try to match her singing voice, which was a beautiful voice. Lots of people will probably remember her and know her story because in 1939, she was not allowed to sing at the Daughters of the American Revolution Hall in Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. And so as a result of that, she sang at Lincoln Memorial at the request of Eleanor Roosevelt. Mary McLeod Bethune was an educator. Bethune-Cookman College in Florida is named for her, and that's HBCU that continues to exist today. This is one of the stamps that features a man. The person being recognized is Fannie Lou Hamer, and she and Medgar Evers were both very instrumental in voting rights and civil rights activism in Mississippi in the 1960s. The Poet Laureate of the state of Illinois, Gwendolyn Brooks is featured on a forever stamp. The very first in this series of Black Heritage stamps that we have was one issued to commemorate my shero, Harriet Tubman, known for her work on the Underground Railroad and for the abolition of slavery. There are lots of singers featured throughout the exhibit. One of my favorites is Ella Fitzgerald, who was known for her ability to scat during the period when jazz was really in its heyday. Patricia Roberts Harris has a connection also to Illinois, because she was an Illinois native, but she became the first African American woman appointed to a U.S. ambassadorship. And she was also the HUD secretary under President Jimmy Carter. Maya Angelou, of course, we all know who she is, the woman with the voice. To me, if God could speak as a woman, I think it would be Maya, because her voice is just incredible. She was an author, a poet, a biographer. One thing a lot of people may not know about her is that she also was a streetcar operator in San Francisco. But she was a marvelous woman and a beautiful voice. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is perhaps her most famous biographical account, but then And Still I Rise is one of my favorite poems that she wrote. Shirley Chisholm is featured on this panel, and she was the first Black woman to be elected to Congress in 1968. Her autobiography, Unbought and Unbossed, spoke of her commitment to public service and to civil rights. Shirley Chisholm paved the way for folks like Kamala Harris today to be in our Congress. And so when Kamala was making her remarks recently on being the nominee for the 2020 election with Vice President to Joseph Biden, she referenced Shirley Chisholm in her opening acceptance speech. And finally, we have Rosetta Thorpe, who was one of the first gospel singers who moved from the church into, quote, the world, into secular clubs. But she did do a lot for the story of gospel music in the United States. I do encourage you all to come and see not only this exhibit, but other exhibits that are here in the museum. And thank you for watching.